Welcome to the Well Woman Show, where we interview women executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs.
And you're listening to the Well Woman Show,
where motivated women achieve fulfillment and well-being.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
Take time for myself by coming to things like Well Woman Drinks.
To be accepting of myself no matter what. Step away from judgment as much as possible.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show.
You're going to be in for a good ride. I don't regret anything. Everything I've ever done, I've learned from it, one way or another, good or bad.
Being a little bit selfish for yourself, put your own oxygen mask on first and then give what's left.
I'm a woman. I would prefer to tell my own story. My story, though it's very personal, is universal.
You're listening to the Well Woman Show. And now your host, Giovanna Rossi.
Hi, Giovanna Rossi here, and welcome to another episode of The Well Woman Show, where I interview women leaders, executives, and entrepreneurs about their lives and their road to becoming and being who they are today. Are you feeling burned out or finding it hard to focus on your goals? Or are you in transition? Well, you're not alone. We all need to activate our superpowers. These are the internal strengths and abilities we all already have but don't use all the time. Superpowers can be cultivated, and they include empathy, love, intuition, courage, and more. As always, this episode is brought to you by Well Woman Life, a global community of women living our best lives. Whether it's your health, relationships, your money, or making an impact in your community and the world, Well Woman Life has you covered. You've made a commitment to not settle, to use your voice, and to live your best life. Well Woman Life offers annual memberships, workshops, and retreats to support you. Check out wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join our growing community. Now back to the show. Hello, Jasmine. I'm so excited to have you on the show. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much. I'm excited to be on your show.
I'm so excited. So as everybody heard in the introduction, I'm doing this very special episode for the 100th episode of the Well Woman Show, bringing on women in the Well Woman Life community who I know personally and have worked with, and also who listen to the show. And so I just I'm really excited to speak to you about your insights as far as being a well woman, and also about the show and just who you are. So let's start with, who are you in the world, Jasmine?
Well, today I am an entrepreneur who is staying at home, working, and having the opportunity to talk to you on your show. So
yeah. And so what do you do? Yeah. Talk about what your business is or what you're up to.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 years ago, I received my degree in physical therapy. So I have my doctorate in physical therapy. And as soon as I started working, I started noticing just this need for more education around prevention in terms of just health and wellness. And so I started my entrepreneurial journey pretty early on, right after. And I started an online health and fitness coaching business. And so that was about 2 years ago. And within the past 6 months, I actually have extended that into more of a life coaching business. So I'm working on my certification right now for life coaching and expanding that. So I'm still working as a physical therapist in a clinic, as well as coaching, my coaching business on this side. So
cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So you're busy.
Mm-hmm.
And Jasmine, I want to ask you, in terms of your experience with the show, what does being a well woman mean to you? And well, let's start there. What does being a well woman mean for you?
So you actually helped a lot with this, because I've always had this sense of trying to find balance, like trying to balance work and life, and everything in between. And you were the first person who gave me the sense of creating more of like a harmony between all of these different areas. So for me, it means finding that harmony. It may not necessarily look like balance, and that it may kind of change from season to season. So maybe spending more time in my business versus maybe a little bit more time in my relationships. And then a different season might be spending a little bit more time in my personal relationships, a little less time with work. So just finding that harmony and finding what feels really good for me.
Oh, wow. I love hearing that. Okay. And how did listening to the show play into that journey and that growth?
So it really helps to expand just my references and knowing what's out there. I think it's very easy to kind of get very narrow-sighted in terms of what makes us feel well. And that's really great when we know what works for us. But it's really nice to have an open mind and to hear about other successful women and what they do to create wellness and harmony in their lives. So that's one of the things I love most about the show, is just hearing other people's perspectives and what they do.
Yeah.
So,
and
yeah.
how long ago did you find the Well Woman show, or me? I mean, I know it's been a while.
Yeah. So I actually remember it very clearly in my mind. It was the summer right before I graduated. So I know it was that July of 2015, because it was right before I graduated from PT school. I went to one of the Well Women community events. The event popped up on my newsfeed. I don't even know how I came across it. I saw it. I was like, this looks really great. And it was at a really stressful time in my life where I was getting ready to take my boards. And I was like, I need to be a part of a community of women who support each other, especially in wellness. And so that's when I went to that event, and it was at Casa Rodenia, I remember.
Oh, that was a good
It
one.
was so fun. Yeah.
That was a great one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have been on this journey, and can you just walk us through sort of what transformation you have made, or what big leaps that you've been able to take because of being involved in the Well Woman Life community? Yeah,
definitely. So I think the biggest thing, just in terms of transformation, is that, especially starting on my entrepreneurial journey, I just thought it was going to be up all the way, right? But it's definitely a roller coaster, ups and downs, ebbs and flows. And being a part of this community has definitely shown me that it's okay not to be going up all the time, and that you're supported even in those lower times. And I'm sure we'll get to this a little later, but the wheel that you introduced at the Well Women Retreat this past fall was so helpful and was such a great tool to actually get me through probably one of the harder parts of my business thus far. So,
okay. And so you're talking about the Well Woman Life Cycle framework that actually we are going to go, and we're going to talk about it in just a minute.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So cool. So do you have a favorite episode?
To date, my actual favorite episode is the one that you recently did with Nagina, where she talked about spices. Since I'm a health and fitness coach and I do have some background in nutrition, I found it really interesting that spices can just be a part of your wellness routine. I had an idea about it. I just didn't really know how to necessarily apply it. And so that show was really helpful for that.
Yeah, wasn't that
really
cool?
interesting.
Yeah.
So I've been having turmeric like every morning since that episode.
Oh,
just for the anti-inflammatory properties and everything.
Yeah.
So just be more mindful of including it.
Yeah, I actually drink my my morning drink is cinnamon and turmeric with hot water. I'm drinking it right now.
Oh, nice.
And it's super soothing and comforting, and it doesn't have any caffeine, which I don't drink caffeine anymore. And so I just love it.
Nice.
So Jasmine, what would you like to hear more of on the show?
Honestly, I think you have such a great variety. So I'm pretty happy with the content that you produce and that I get to listen to.
Awesome.
So I don't have any suggestions right now. Yeah, it's great.
Well, I want to switch our focus here to the Well Woman Life Cycle and the framework that you referred to a minute ago that I presented at the retreat recently for the Well Woman community. And let's just kind of walk through it, and we can do some live sort of consulting right now where we can actually talk about something that you're dealing with. I think this would be super interesting for listeners to see how this actually works.
Awesome. Sounds good.
So if you're up for it, we'll do it. So Jasmine, think about what your greatest challenge is right now. So, in the Well Woman Life Cycle, we look at our lives through 3 domains, which is the public domain, professional and personal.
Mm-hmm.
And personal is like your health and your finances and your relationships, and professional is your career, your business, your education, and public is your service, your community work, volunteering, any boards you sit on, running for public office, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just for the purposes of right now, try to think about your greatest challenge in one of those areas that you want to work on.
Okay. So I would say professional.
Professional. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you can tell us as little or as much as you want about the actual challenge. The most important thing is that we walk through this process so people can follow along with it.
Okay.
And so on a scale of 1 to 10, so I'm going to ask you 2 questions here. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your current experience of your internal superpowers related to this challenge? And when I say internal superpowers, just for the simplicity's sake and for everybody to be able to follow along, think about internal superpowers as self-love, self-care, self-acceptance, those kind of really fundamental superpowers that we all have access to, but we don't always use, or we're not always very strong with them all the time.
So I would have to give it a 7.
7. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your current experience of your external supports related to this challenge? So your external supports being the most important external factors that can impact this particular challenge. So it could be your family, it could be specific things inside your business, like your team or your schedule, or it could be something in the community, or there are different supports that can be more or less supportive at any given point as it relates to that challenge.
I would have to give it, I would have to say like a 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you are doing pretty well with your internal superpowers. What are you doing in that area that's working for you?
So probably, a year and a half into my business, I was just getting confused and a little distracted with what was going around me. So I really wanted to hone in on my gut feeling and intuition. So I started a gratitude practice that was a little bit more consistent than one that I've been doing. And actually, I'm reading a book by Gabrielle Bernstein. It's a 40-day book that just kind of leads you through letting go of fear, looking more into love, tapping more into your intuition and that inner guidance. And so I've been developing those resources, and I notice a difference. So
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. And then what are the challenges in the other area, the supports that are kind of lacking?
So creating a consistent schedule, since I am working in the clinic like 32 hours a week, and basically using my weekends and evenings to try to build my business as well as maintain that harmony of getting my workouts in and taking care of myself. It can definitely be a challenge of trying to figure out how to maintain the consistency of, writing blog posts and social media posts and all of that. So working through that and then finding systems, getting a system in place.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Those are all super challenging. And so I want to just reflect on where you are in the Well Woman life cycle. And if you picture a wheel or a circle and divide the circle into 4 parts, so there's 4 quadrants, where you landed with your answers here is in the lower right quadrant. Did you know that? Had you already figured that out?
I did. Yeah. And
so, as you know, because you've been through this process at the retreat, the lower right quadrant is a very active stage. It's a stage of transition. And it's a stage where there's a lot of decisions being made and a lot of change, and a lot of letting go of fear and kind of leaping into things.
Right.
And it's interesting that you're in this stage. It's a very exciting stage to be in, because you have really done the work on yourself internally. And so you're super resilient and ready to take on those challenges. It's much harder to be trying to do this when your superpowers are really low, in which case you would be in a whole different stage, as you know. And that has a whole own other set of challenges. But you are in this really exciting stage of transition and action. And so, it's about really building on where you are with your resiliency and your self-care and your personal development work that you've been doing. And then really taking the time now to create a very strategic plan for efficient and right action. And so what kind of ideas, first of all, does that resonate with you, with where you are?
It does. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have some things planned, and then also trying to keep myself focused and try not to get, shiny object syndrome, especially at the beginning of the year when it can be really exciting, but overwhelming at the same time. Right. So.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that can happen at any stage, but definitely at the beginning of the year when there's just so much being thrown at us in terms of like goals and plans and, got to have everything, organized and sorted out right away.
Right.
It's really important in this stage to be super efficient and exactly what you're saying, like not be trying to do everything. So being selective and efficient about where you want to spend your energy, because you've done all this work to like get to where you are to be able to like really move things forward now. And so being very selective and making sure that you really maintain that self-care and that those practices that you've been putting in place, like the gratitude and other things too, other of those healing practices that you have in place, making sure that you really keep making time for those things. It's very easy for us sometimes to sort of get to a point where we're feeling really great about things, and then we stop doing those practices that got us there, right? Right. And then we go back into that whole cycle. So what are you thinking are your big actions or your big activities in this stage?
So getting a schedule written down, just at least for some structure, allowing still some flexibility and some space for, the unknown. And so creating that. And then also just putting a few systems in place. And when I say systems, I just mean, what can I do to make my work a little easier that doesn't necessarily compromise the quality? So maybe it might be a few automated posts on social media, trying to batch tasks so that I'm just a little bit more efficient, because that's one of the things you said. And then looking at what other people are doing just in terms of creating ease in their business and using that as advice and applying it to mine.
Yeah, no, those are all really great. I do a lot of that. And systems are so important at this stage because it's very easy, especially when you're building an online business, to just do a lot of busy work. A lot of time-consuming tasks that, hours go by and you're like, what have I actually done here? Like, what actual products do I have? And so having some of those systems in place. Batching is great. I do that with the podcast. And, when people ask me, like, how do you get so much done? Like, it's really incredible, the volume of, like, stuff that I put out,
Right.
As with you and many people listening. And it really is only because I do the work personally and I have the systems in place, and the tools, to be that efficient. So, but again, just touching on, it is really easy to, try to use every tool. So like, I just want to use every single tool that everyone is suggesting, and you get really overwhelmed, and it's like following every shiny object. So being really clear and selective about, the pros and cons of each thing. How much does each thing cost? Is it free? How much time is it going to take to learn this new system? Is it worth transferring over, to something new? Or should I just stick with what I have? There are all these considerations to make. But it sounds like you're on your way.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely comparing different things and just making like a pros and cons list. And then again, tapping into that intuition and just going with my gut feeling. And then knowing, if it's not the right choice, I can always change too, because that gives me some relaxation.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So Jasmine, do you have another challenge in a different domain that you would like to look at? Either in the personal or the public?
Let's do the public.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what is your greatest, or think about your greatest challenge in the public domain right now? So public meaning your service, your volunteerism, your activism, any of that stuff. And on a scale of 1 to 10, what's your current experience of your own internal superpowers related to this challenge?
I would probably say a 5.
Okay. And on a scale of 1 to 10, what is your current experience of your external supports related to this challenge? So that could include policies, it can include bigger systems and structures, or it could include, your
I would say a 7.
Okay. Okay. And so pretty low on the superpowers, or kind of average, like medium, and then fairly high on the supports. So, do you know where you are in this? I mean, I've just worked it out, but where do you?
I would. I mean, I'd have to probably say Actually, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so let's talk it through. So, if you're feeling low-ish on your superpowers, that is, and also pretty high on external supports, then you're in the responsive stage, which is upper left.
Okay.
Upper left quadrant. And for those of you listening and want to follow along, we're going to be posting a free download of this life cycle that you can take a look at while we're talking in the show notes. So if you're listening, take a look at the link either below the video or in the show notes for this show, and you can check it out. And so what does upper left quadrant mean? This is essentially where we can really be experiencing burnout, among other things. I mean, I always just use the word burnout as a kind of a trigger word for that stage. But actually what's happening in this stage is that you have a lot of things going on externally, in terms of supports, like a lot of opportunities, a lot of stuff going around you externally, and but what's happening personally, internally, is that you're not quite there, and you're kind of feeling depleted in that area. And so what this leads to is responding. That's why it's called the responsive stage. You are responding to all these opportunities, but if you're not taking care of yourself, your self-care and your personal work related to that challenge, you can burn out really fast. And so does that resonate with you with this challenge?
It does. Absolutely.
Do you want to tell us a little bit
So the reason why I chose this area as the next one to work on is because I have been wanting to get involved in the community a little bit more, just in terms of volunteering, either at a shelter for women, children, mentoring, that kind of thing. And just like you mentioned, having the external support and these opportunities. So almost having like these options laid out and having the opportunity to be like, okay, where do I want to go? What do I want to do? However, with my job as a physical therapist, I tend to work with people who are having major life transitions and changes. And so my job is physically demanding, and as well as, emotionally demanding as well, just in terms of being a support for them. Yeah. And so it's almost like I don't have, any more to give above and beyond work right now, because it'd just be too much. So. Yeah. So then in that case, there's two things you can do. You can either build up your ability to like fill your cup more so that you have more to give, or you can pull back on what you're trying to give and just not prioritize that right now and say, I can't do that right now. And it's okay to say no to some things, right? Right. But the first thing about this stage is the awareness piece, because it's so easy to get caught up in all of the opportunities and all of the activity of this stage, and then never really connect back in with ourselves to acknowledge that there is actually something that we need to look at here and like stop, listen to what's going on. And just having this conversation kind of forces you to get off of that wheel of going round and round and round, and take a step back and look at it. But that's definitely what happens in this stage. Does that sound about like what's going on? It does. Yeah. Yeah. It does. And so the kinds of things that we suggest in this stage, so we have, we identify the stage that you're in, and then we look at what superpowers you need to activate in order to really move through this stage and take full advantage of being in that stage, but maybe move on. And so the superpower here is listening. And whereas the superpower in the last example that we had with your work challenge, that superpower was what we call leaping, like taking the leap, taking big action. This particular superpower that you want to cultivate is listening. And that is really tapping back into your intuition about this, and either building up your resilience and you're filling your own cup so you have more to give, or deciding that is just not where I am right now, and I need to pull back. Right. Okay. Yeah. So cool. So any questions about what we went through, or kind of reflections? I don't have any questions. Everything makes a lot of sense, especially when we went through the public area, because that was not a topic that I initially thought that I had a challenge in. But since you brought it up, I'm glad that we went through it. And just as far as the listening piece, I think that's why I do listen to podcasts a lot, because I'm always searching for what else can I add, for self-care, for wellness. And so everything just makes a lot of sense. So Thank you.
And well, you're welcome. And it's really good to look at different challenges with this framework because you are in different stages with different areas of your life. So just because you're in one stage in something doesn't mean you're in that stage for everything. And if you're wanting to borrow from some of the stuff you're doing that's really working for you in your work life, like all of the gratitude practice that you're doing and the other stuff, and borrow that and use it in this other area, that would be really powerful because you're already doing it.
Right.
Apply it to that challenge as well.
Right. Nice.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, Jasmine, it's been so fun talking to you. I would love to follow up with you and see how you're doing later on down the road. But for now, thanks for being on the show.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
That's it for our show today. Remember, if you need support to live your Well Woman life, head over to wellwomanlife.com/Facebook to join us. Our monthly live event, Well Woman Drinks, brings women together to share our successes and challenges as women, leaders, moms, aunts, sisters, and all the other roles we carry. If you'd like to attend a Well Woman Drinks near you, or if there isn't one in your city yet and you'd like to start one, email info@wellwomanlife.com. If you enjoyed the show, please take a moment and subscribe in iTunes and leave a review. This helps raise visibility, which is super helpful when it comes to producing the show every week. For feedback, comments, or just to let me know you were listening today, find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram @WellWomanLife. I'm Giovanna Rossi for The Well Woman Show. Until next time, have a super powerful week.